Hello, and thanks for joining us for the Farming Today podcast with me, Kaz Graham. In this edition, the Windsor Agreement, meant to ease trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, is too complex and impossible to navigate, so says a House of Lords committee. And fury from farmers who say that the government's last-minute extension to a scheme that's paid them to help protect nature has come too late.
It's going to be a betrayal for nature. It's a betrayal for farming. This is the absolute worst. It's the nadir. They cannot go any lower.
More on that a little later. But we start with farms owned by councils. We're talking about them all this week. On Sunday, Powys Council closed a consultation on plans for a new farm policy, which includes the possibility of selling some of its council-owned farms. The council says incomes are too low and maintenance costs are too high on some of its farms. But local council farm tenants hope farming will remain a key part of council plans. Marie-Claire Carey-Jones travelled to Montgomery in Powys to meet farmer and chairman of the Tenants Association for Powys County Farmers Estate, Nicholas Klyn Davis.
We do beef and sheep, grow our own corn, grow our own straw, so we've got our own straw, so we try and be as self-sufficient as we can. And the farm's called Panacea, it's 77 acres.
How important is the availability of council farms for you and for your family?
Oh, very important. We wouldn't have a chance to farm otherwise. Before we came here, we rented a bit of ground here and there, but it was really impossible. And the way the price of ground is, it's very impossible to buy a farm. And a lot of the tenanted farm, the big estates, they're amalgamating them, so a smaller farmer hasn't got a chance to start.
Gets a lot more out of a tenant as well.
Today, Nicholas is hosting a meeting of the Tenants Association for Powys County Farms to discuss the council's farm consultation. The leader of the council is also attending.
Hi, I'm Councillor Jake Berryman, leader of Powys County Council. So we've just closed a consultation on a new farm policy to look afresh at how we manage our farm estate. We hope that that'll make it far more sustainable, nature-friendly, environmentally friendly and sustainable for our farming tenants into the future.
One of the things in that, though, is looking at the possibility of maybe selling some of the council farms. Why is that something that you're looking into?
Well, the council has unfortunately been looking at its assets, all of its assets, for a long time now, and we do have a policy to release assets and to sell them, and that includes the farm estate or parts of the farm estate. So there are high maintenance assets. That's barns and properties that haven't been invested in for a long time and are falling down around the tenants' ears that are leaving. So we're taking an opportunity when tenants leave to look at those assets.
Is there not an argument that that's been short-sighted, that this investment hasn't been made, and that's why you're now in a position where you might have to sell some of these farms?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. In an ideal world, you would maintain all of your assets to the top standard, and that would mean that they're in pristine condition and serving the tenant well. The reality is, however, that resources have been scarce and resources have been taken away from the farm estate for where we actually have statutory duties and responsibilities to provide services elsewhere.
Can you give any reassurances to tenant farmers here?
I would like to think that we can. I think that farming remains a key part of what we do. It isn't a statutory responsibility, but even if we sell some land and farms on an ongoing basis to provide support to pay down the revenue on borrowing elsewhere that the council needs to spend on capital, we will have, I hope, a good farming community going forward for a long time into the future.
Members of the Tenants Association hope that will be the case.
Lucia, I am a tenant farmer. We can't just look at how much revenue is being brought in as a financial side of things. There's huge benefits from wildlife, the rural communities that these farms support.
My name's Lizzie Morris. I am a tenant farmer with my husband. We are new entrant farmers, been in the council holding for 2 years. I do understand the pressures that the council are in financially. However, I think that the council holdings have a part to play in the community. They have a part to play in actually financing the council, and through management collaboration between the Tenants Association and the council, I'm sure that they could come up with a way that would support their finances whilst maintaining the 130 holdings that they have for the future generations of farming.
Lizzie Morris ending that report from Marie-Claire Carey-Jones. Now, overwhelmingly complex and impossible to navigate. That's what a House of Lords committee has to say about the Windsor Framework, which, as I'm sure you'll remember, is the post-Brexit agreement between the UK and the EU that's meant to simplify trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. It's caused significant problems for some businesses with extra costs, checks, paperwork and delays. The House of Lords Northern Ireland Scrutiny Committee has been examining the framework and say it must be simplified, with one member of the committee saying it leaves Northern Ireland businesses and communities in an impossible position. Chris Page is the Ireland correspondent for BBC News.
It's really all about complexity. The House of Lords Scrutiny Committee took evidence from businesses in Northern Ireland. Members of the committee made visits to Northern Ireland, spoke to people who were engaging, as it were, with the Windsor Framework and how they were getting on with it. And their key finding is that it's opaque and people don't really understand it.
And I mean, businesses, they all have to juggle this, don't they? I mean, I know that one of the findings was that the Windsor Framework is impossible to navigate. What have businesses in Northern Ireland said about it?
They've basically been strongly agreeing. We've heard from Andrew Linus, who runs one of the major food wholesalers here in Northern Ireland. He's told my colleagues in BBC Northern Ireland that as far as his firm, Linus Food Service, which is, as I say, a huge catering supplier, well, they've had additional costs as a result of Brexit paperwork, of certificates and so on. And he says he doesn't like it, and he's even said he thinks that basically the cost of his goods is an extra 1%, between 1% and 3% more expensive compared to what you would pay in Great Britain. The Federation of Small Businesses has said that the findings of the House of Lords Committee really bears out research and soundings it's taken from its members. So there's a great deal really of agreement, I would say, amongst businesses in Northern Ireland at the sharp end of all this, so to speak, that yes, the Windsor Framework does need to be simplified, and they've also expressed hope that more negotiations between the UK and the EU, which are expected to take place later this year in other areas of post-Brexit trade, that they will also yield a more simplified system and much smoother goings-on when it comes to goods, not least agri-food, which is a huge industry here, being moved between Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Of course, this is just a report. Could it make a difference? I mean, could government act on its recommendations?
Well, the government has said in response that the Windsor Framework is the only workable solution that safeguards Northern Ireland's place in the UK internal market and also the EU single market, and also ensures no hard border on the island of Ireland. So there's a feeling, I think, in Westminster that really they've done all they can to try to resolve this very difficult issue that was thrown up in the aftermath of Brexit, and at one stage was really threatening to throw the whole Brexit project off course, as the proponents of Brexit would say it. So they will point to really the long negotiations, the very painstaking work that has been going on, and also they will continue, I think, to make the point that Northern Ireland's in a unique position in that it has full access to both the UK market and also the EU single market when it comes to exporting goods from Northern Ireland. So it'll be encouraging businesses to try to make the most of that, though businesses, as I've said, will be saying that with all the extra bureaucracy that they have to deal with, well, that's easier said than done.
Chris Page, the BBC's Ireland correspondent. Too little, too late. That's what we're hearing from some farmers who've already ploughed up and planted fields that were being farmed for nature. This, they say, is because the government has taken too long to come up with an extension to their environmental funding. After months of lobbying by farming and environment groups, the government announced a one-year extension to the Countryside Stewardship Scheme earlier this week. The scheme pays farmers in England for providing environmental benefits like wildflower corridors and habitats for farmland birds over a 5-year period. Now, around 5,000 of these agreements were due to wind up at the end of December. And with the new post-Brexit scheme, the Sustainable Farming Incentive closed for applications for the foreseeable future, there's no current programme to compensate these farmers for the lower incomes they get while farming for nature. DEFRA says the extension is to allow farmers to maintain the environmental improvements they've already made, and the news has been welcomed by the NFU, although some environmental charities say it's only buying time. It's not the long-term strategy that's needed. Tom Allen Stevens farms 170 hectares of arable land in Oxfordshire. He's had land in countryside stewardship for around 20 years, and his agreement was due to end in December. That's in just 10 weeks' time. He told us this last-minute extension is just too late.
I think it's absolutely shocking that they've made this announcement now. I mean, we've been asking for a commitment for many, many months. They have known about it for well over a year that this was going to happen, that thousands of farmers were going to be exiting the scheme and they were going to be looking for a new scheme to go into. And only now have they decided to actually commit to extending the scheme. So most arable farms have already committed their land to crops that they're growing for next year. The contractors are out in the fields as we speak, putting wheat into land that used to be in stewardship. And I am not alone. This is far worse than too little too late. It's shocking. It is absolutely appalling that they have waited until now. If I was a cynic, I would say that they deliberately waited until then so that we had no choice.
What will this mean for nature on your farm?
Nature is the big loser here because I tell you, we've spent well over 20 years building up the nature habitats on this farm, and we've got to a really nice place. I tell you, some of the things that I see when I walk around the farm are a joy to see, and those people who walk around the farm from the local town tell me that they really enjoy that too. They're going to come round next year and they're going to say, where are the wildflower margins? Where are all the butterflies? Where are the birds that we used to see? And I'll say, I'm sorry, but I had to take out those habitats. That is the big loss here. It's nature that's going to lose out.
Can you explain why you had to plant wheat? Because, you've got wildlife margins. Why do you need more grants?
These margins don't pay for themselves. You're taking land out of production, basically, to provide a space for wildlife. You cannot afford to have land doing nothing. If it's not growing food, we have to do something else with our land. We haven't got enough land in this country to say, oh, well, we'll just wait until the government can make up its mind. We have to do something with it. In our case, the best decision, if it wasn't going to be delivering for nature, would be to deliver food. And that's the commitment that we made. It's too late now for me to go back on that. The crops are literally going in the ground as we speak. We can't move back away from that now.
How much confidence do you have in DEFRA just now?
Confidence, and I think I speak for an awful lot of farmers, confidence in DEFRA at the moment is at an all-time low. I feel absolutely betrayed at how this government has treated us. It's not Angela Eagle's fault, it's not Emma Reynolds' fault, it's their immediate predecessors, but it's certainly been taken at the very highest level. The DEFRA civil servants have worked so hard to get this scheme to work, SFI and countryside stewardship, and they've just been let down by ministers who have failed to act. We at least deserve an apology from this. Angela Eagle and Emma Reynolds needs to sit down with farmers and actually listen to what we are telling them and try to understand what the pressures are in farming and how things work. Because this is a really, really good illustration of how shockingly bad they have got it. And it's going to be a betrayal for nature. It's a betrayal for farming. This is the absolute worst. It's the nadir. They cannot go any lower.
Tom Allen Stevens. Emma Reynolds, who he mentioned, is of course the DEFRA Secretary of State. We'd hope to hear from Angela Eagle, the Farming Minister, to get DEFRA's response to that, but our interview was delayed. We now hope to hear from her in tomorrow's programme. And that's all we've time for today. I'm Kaz Graham, the producer is Beatrice Fenton, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.